You're welcome to this edition of the Learning Lunch. Today we have a very special guest in our midst today. She is such an awesome fellow, whom I see as a great inspiration to young people, and particularly to um, young girls around, just to motivate them because she's done something so unique, and in the sense that if she can do it, so also can anyone do it, and that is what she goes about telling young people. We have in our midst today Dr. Kike Moronkeji. She's a scientist, an aeronautic engineer, as well as an entrepreneur also. She has so many medals to her name. She obtained a bachelor's degree in engineering, in aeronautic engineering at the City University. And after her graduation, she did a placement with Airbus in Turlough in France. And upon the completion, she went for a master's degree also at Cranford University, where she also uh, graduated with an MSc in aerospace vehicle design. So awesome. She got her first engineering job when she finished MSc uh, as a stress engineer for Safran in Burnley. Uh, and also, she also applied for a membership with the Royal Aeronautic Society, and she became a full member of the Royal Aeronautic Society also. She's also a chartered engineer also. You can see she has so many medals to her name. Uh, Dr. Moronkeji is also an entrepreneur, and she's the CEO of Giddybox, which is a movie streaming organization, company. So without wasting much time today, I will just let her have the floor. Um, you're welcome, Dr. Kike, and
Thank you.
it's great to have you. It's an honor to have you today to speak to our students and to challenge them, to encourage them, to inspire them. So
Thank
I'll
you very much.
see you. So you can have the floor now.
Thank you. Let me just come out. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, excellent.
I can see your
Okay,
screen.
excellent. Thank you for that very, very um, encouraging and very praiseworthy introduction. I just hope that you students, you gain from whatever it is I have to say today, and hopefully it helps you in your career choices. So I will go past the first page and onto the slide. So I thought I'd start off by just, sort of a brief intro into how aircrafts fly. Like a lot of us, we go on holidays, every year or every, holiday that we have. And most times you're likely to have, gone in an air jet. So the question is, how does this big metal take off from the ground, and how does it sort of land back on the ground? Now, I'm only just going to give you sort of a basic overview, just to sort of give you a teaser, and hopefully, maybe some of you might end up in careers in the aerospace sector. So first things first, we've got four factors that influence an aircraft in motion, and they call them principles of flight. So you can see lift, drag, thrust, and weight. Now, what you need to understand is that some of the principles here you have control over, like the weight. You can control your weight. Thrust, you can control the thrust, but for things like drag, you can't really control drag. Now, what is drag? Drag is anything that's sort of preventing you from moving forward. So that's why the thrust is trying to overcome the drag in moving the aircraft forward. And then you have lift. Lift, what lift tries to do is it overcomes the aircraft weight to ensure that the aircraft actually becomes, airborne. So these are just the four main principles. Now, if you do delve into aerospace engineering or aeronautical engineering, you're going to learn finer details like, things like aerodynamics and all those kind of things that come into play. But these are just the general four principles of flight. So here I'm going to also show you a video. And the video is, again, just to give you some insight into what happens to make that aeroplane, airborne. Now, as birds have wings, aircraft also have wings. But what's interesting about the aircraft on a plane is that we call it a fixed body wing. So it's not one that flaps like, the wings of a bird does. And what's interesting in the design of the wing is that the cross section of the wing is called an aerofoil. Now, I've shown you a picture of a slice of bread. So if you slice bread, each individual slice of that bread is actually a cross section. So your toast is a cross section of a full loaf of bread. Same thing with the wing. The aerofoil is the cross section of the wing. And why do we do this as engineers or scientists is it's the easiest way to test principles, because what you want to do is before you go and make some big, massive component or, tool or machine, you always want to test a small sample just to make sure that your principles work. And if it does work, then you go ahead and you make the real thing. So that's what we do as engineers and scientists. We always test small samples of whatever ideas we have, in our heads. So I'm going to show you a short video of what happens to generate lift. Remember I said lift is just like overcoming the weight of the aircraft. So I'll play this video now just so you can see. So basically what the man's drawing, he's drawing arrows, and those arrows represent airflows. And if you notice, the top of the aerofoil is a lot longer than the bottom. So the air has to flow faster over the top and slower over the bottom. So that's why it generates lift, because it causes this pressure that generates lift. So here we see an example of a paper aerofoil section and a hairdryer. So he's trying to show you how these principles will work in reality. So you'll see that the wing begins to rise due to the airflow over it. So you can see it clearly does work. And that's why, in reality, that's essentially what happens when we're in that aircraft and we're going on holiday. So next slide. So my education and training, I obviously did GCSEs, then I did A-levels. Now, my A-levels weren't that fantastic. I could have done better, but most universities give you an option whereby as long as you've done some A-levels, then they tell you, okay, you have to do a foundation. So I did 1 year foundation engineering. Then I went on to do my bachelor's in aeronautical engineering. Then once I did that, I was very fortunate that I won a place with Airbus. Airbus is one of the 2 leading aircraft manufacturers. So typically, there are 2 main aircraft manufacturers, Boeing and Airbus. So if you hear 737 or 787, that's a Boeing aircraft. If you hear A310, A330, A340, then that's an Airbus aircraft. So I was very fortunate to win a place in Airbus Toulouse in France, and I was there for about 4 months. And whilst I was there, just talking and networking with other engineers, I was told, look, bachelor's is so easily achievable. You need to be different. So go a step higher and get your master's. So when I got back to the UK, first thing I did was I did my master's in aerospace vehicle design at Cranfield University. And then once I finished my master's, I got a job, first job out of being a student. So it was a steep learning curve, but a very interesting one. And that was with a company in Burnley, because as an engineer, I knew that I'd have to leave London and go somewhere remote, or not necessarily remote, but where big factories, can be built. So I knew I'd have to leave London, and I went all the way up north to Burnley. And so because I was earning an income, I could upgrade my membership with the Royal Aeronautical Society. So I became a full member. And then whilst I was working, I subsequently left my first job in Burnley, which was at Safran. I moved to BAE Systems, and BAE Systems is the leading defense company in the world. So whilst I was at BAE Systems, I had really good a really good line manager, and he sort of just encouraged me and said, you know what, you should consider getting your chartership. So he helped me through the process, which was filling in this lengthy application form to the Royal Aeronautical Society. And then once I'd completed that and they were happy with my application, I then did an interview, and thankfully I passed that interview. So I became a chartered engineer. Then after time in industry, I just found the mundaneness of it all a bit boring. So I thought I wanted to do something different. And then I had a cousin who was really ill. He had like kidney disease, like kidney issues. He used to go into hospital a lot for dialysis treatment. And I just thought I'd like to sort of develop something that could probably help him and others, because the thing about people with kidney issues is that they tend to have water retention known as edema. And that's the reason they go into hospital like once or twice a week for some individuals. And basically it's just to remove the fluid in their body, because their body gets a bit swollen due to them retaining fluid. So I thought I wanted to be part of, scientists that will find maybe an alternative, therapy for people that suffer from not only just kidney disease, but some heart diseases as well also cause edema in patients. So I subsequently did a PhD in biomechanical engineering at University of Liverpool. And that was a very thrilling experience, just being around people that are creating things that would be, solutions for us in the future. So that was very exciting. Then after that, I had like 2 of my children. So I've got 3 children in total, but I had 2 children whilst I was doing my PhD. After I completed my PhD, I did like a short postdoctoral research. And then after that, it was just very, very difficult, challenging to continue in industry. So, and also my husband was working away as well. So I was essentially looking after all 3 children. It was a bit overwhelming. So we agreed that I would, stay at home for this period and raise the children. And whilst I was doing that, I thought, I'm not going to be idle doing this. I'm just going to, do something that I enjoy, just a hobby. And hence I founded Giddy Box Office, which is a Nollywood movie streaming platform. So now, after all said and done, let me just go back. I also just want to highlight that you don't necessarily have to use A levels to get into engineering. You could go via an apprenticeship, or you could do a BTEC. In my days, it was a BTEC, a GMVQ. I don't know if those are still available. But what I will suggest is, if you feel like you don't want to do A levels, then find out what other options you have to get into engineering. So don't be put off by A levels, because as you can clearly see, even I didn't do so well in my A levels, but that didn't stop me becoming an engineer. Okay. So now, what's important about being successful in your career, in anything you choose to do, is you have to invest in yourself. So always read and be eager to learn. Read, and I just don't mean things that you find pleasurable, but even things that may not be as pleasurable, but things that will inform your mind. So read and be eager to learn. And then remember that there's no stupid question. So be bold and ask, because chances are the only stupid question is the question that doesn't get asked. And remember that the question that you have, someone else may have, and they're just probably not as, brave enough to ask. But I will encourage you, always ask questions. And then you want to get all A's or bag that first class at university or whatever it is, you choose to do. Get past papers. Make sure you get papers from at least the last 10 years or so, because what I find is lecturers, they never recreate questions. Instead, they recycle them. So once you've done your lecture, go and grab, start working with past papers. Don't even bother looking at textbooks. Look at textbooks when you don't understand the principle, when you don't understand the concept, or you're struggling answering the past paper question, then refer to your textbooks. But what I will encourage you to do is make past papers your best friend. Then attend conferences. Sometimes it could be maybe at school, maybe they've got something in your hall, or maybe it's your local library that's got something on, because no knowledge is ever wasted. It could even be like a creative writing course or whatever it is. Just make sure that you're constantly developing yourself, developing your skills, because you never know where you're going to need them. Then get recognition from your career-specific society. So that's for those of you that may follow a certain, a career path, like your law or engineering or, whatever it is. You'll have societies. So, join those societies, get materials from them, and, network as well. It's also a good networking opportunity. And then make your own personal development plans, because this is very, very important. You know yourself more than most people do, and you are your best critique in a sense. So make plans to improve yourself, like where you feel like you've got weaknesses or shortcomings, then work on those. So again, continued personal development. So remember, most of us minorities, so you have to work harder. That's just a fact of life. There's no way around it. But what I will encourage you to do is work smarter. Just don't work harder, work smarter. So use Google, use YouTube for learning, not just for entertainment, because there's so much you can learn from these platforms. In fact, there's really no excuse today for you not to do so well when there's so much information readily available. Again, the workplace is made up of people, so you have to develop your communication skills. So get a start by negotiating, work on your negotiating skills at home. Like when your parents, say you shouldn't do something, or you want to ask them something, find a way around to convince them to your way, as opposed to, just being upset that you're not getting your way. And also negotiate with your siblings if you have siblings. Then the next thing is interpersonal skills. So remember, key point in life, not everyone is going to like you. And because not everyone's going to like you, that shouldn't stop you being a better person, because in the long run, it is better to be a person of character and integrity, than to not work on those skills anyway. Improving attention to detail. This is so important, because I feel like people just don't care about the finer details, and it's not that difficult. So whatever you do well. Mediocrity for me is a plague. And what I mean by attention to detail is, even if you're walking along the street, you see like maybe a can, someone's not thrown it in the bin, just pick it up, throw it in the bin. Those are the little things that mean that you pay attention to detail. And trust me, when you start doing these things, they begin to show in your work. Then engage in activities such as swimming or catch and juggle balls that can improve your hand-eye coordination. This is especially important if you want to go on to becoming a surgeon or an F1 driver even. So my career highlights, as an airworthiness engineer, I got to travel. Being a woman in engineering, even though I was always the minority, it was still fun. I just loved participating in a male-dominated space. Then as a stress engineer, I was so glad that a lot of my analysis and my calculations helped customers to fly their aircraft. It made sure that the aircraft was safe in the air. Then as a research scientist, I was just so happy that I was, part of a community that are creating solutions that would benefit humanity. And then as a founder of giddyboxoffice.com, I just love the creative side of my life. So I love that as well. My career downsides. Okay, so I alluded to this earlier. I just found that sometimes with certain engineering roles, it can be a bit mundane. So it just means you're doing the same thing. You're doing the same old calculations. They're very, very important, don't get me wrong. But I just felt like it stifled my creativity a little bit. Then the constant traveling. So on the one hand, it was wonderful to travel. It's fun. Oh my gosh, I'm going to Germany. Oh my gosh, I'm going to, abroad, like maybe USA or, wherever. It was always exciting. But then after a while, it just became, oh my gosh, another suitcase again. Oh my gosh, another hotel again. It just became, not as exciting. And then the salary really is not that great as an engineer, particularly in the UK. Compared with other professions like IT or accountancy. I do know that in Europe, engineers are rated quite well. I don't know what their pay is like, but I do know in America, their pay is considerably better compared to the UK. Promotion issues, I found that rising through the ranks required a lot of strategizing. So you had to sort of watch and see when a position became vacant and try to sort of, get into it, or you had to maybe go to a different department that had a vacancy, and that became a promotion. So it just became, you really had to strategize. And then diversity challenges, again, being female and then again being black, you just find that sometimes you're the only one in the room, and sometimes that can be a bit uncomfortable. Not to say that I was made uncomfortable, but you just know when you're the only one, you just feel that sense of aloneness. So those were some of the things that I didn't like about my career. And so I've mentioned remuneration. So again, my graduate salary was really low because I lacked experience, but I knew that it was just one of those things that even though I didn't have experience, I needed to get a job. So it was one of those things where I take the loss and be like, yes, it's a low salary, but at least once I get the experience, I could then move on to a better paying job. And that's exactly what I did. Once I got a couple of years experience, I then moved on to BAE Systems, where I got a bit more of a salary increase. And then the thing I liked about BAE Systems was that I got bonuses. Well, we got bonuses if the company did really well. And not only that, I bought shares in the company, which meant I owned a tiny piece of the company. So just to round off, my extracurricular activities are, I love reading and writing. I also enjoy cooking and baking. I do a bit of public speaking every now and again, and I'm constantly improving my swimming techniques. I also try to keep fit by cycling and working out. So thank you. Thank you for listening.
Wow, awesome. That's fantastic. That is just brilliant. Thank you so much, Dr. Moronkeji. That's just awesome.
Yeah.
You said so much today. So you've highlighted so many things today, which I believe that a lot of our students will really, really benefit from. Um, you've talked about the fact that, though you didn't have a great A-level result, but look at you today. What you've achieved today, the resilience in you, you didn't allow that to hinder your dream. You went further and you did beyond anyone else could do, which is brilliant. Thank you for that. So, for the course that you read in university and for the career pathway that you choose, when did you decide to pursue this career? Was this something that had been in you before? When exactly, at what period in your life did you decide that you were going to become an aeronautic engineer?
It's kind of, that's a very good question. I've always loved maths, and I've always loved anything to do with building and making things. So originally I was actually thinking of doing computer engineering, and this was probably around about when I was doing my A levels. I was thinking, oh, I'll do computer engineering, because then it was still relatively new and fresh then, and stuff. But I was having a conversation with someone, and they were just talking about how in the aerospace sector, in aeronautical engineering, there are not a lot of females. I just thought, oh, okay, I see that as a challenge, and that was how I ended up, studying aeronautical engineering, because I just felt like I wanted that challenge, because I'm like, what's so hard about it? So that's essentially how I ended up in aeronautical engineering.
Awesome. Thank you very much. That was good. That was good. I knew you talked about, one of the highlights of your career is traveling, because I know that even currently you're not in UK, you are in Saudi Arabia, if I'm right.
Correct.
Yes. So that's just one of the things that comes with your job also. Takes your time. But for all the things you do on a daily basis, what actually motivates you? What gets you up? Because you do so many things. You run a business. You're a scientist. You're still within the aeronautical field. What gets you on, really?
I think it's just having a life full of purpose, knowing that I'm on this planet for a reason, and knowing that every day I'm awake, I have to do something to show that, that sense of gratitude for being alive. And also, I'm someone that I like to sort of like have plans. And because I have these plans, it means that I have something to work towards every day, every month, and every year. So I tend to sort of have an idea like, oh, in the next 5 years, I want to be this and this and this. And because I have that as a goal, I then create smaller steps to ensure that I get to that goal. So in that moment, it doesn't feel like I'm doing a lot, but it's after I've done it and I look back, I realize, oh, yes, I've actually achieved so much more than I'd actually anticipated.
Thank you very much. Awesome. I like that. I like that statement. A life of purpose. It's very important, really. Purpose gives, it gives that strength, that energy for us to keep on, going, even when
Yes.
it's very tough. It's something that I always encourage young people to have purpose, and also to believe in themselves, which is great. Uh,
Yes.
what sort of skills would you need? Uh, okay, let me just rephrase it again. Looking at our students, what could they do, okay, to build skills in them? What sort of skills would they need if they want to come into your field? And what sort of things should they be doing now that will help them to achieve or acquire those skills for where they're going?
Yeah, I think that they should sort of have a general knowledge of things about life and self-awareness. They should know who they are, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. I think also they need to develop what's it called, public speaking skills, because you're going to be in group situations where you're going to have to speak your opinions, and people would want to know your opinions, because if you're quiet in a group, they would just see you as somebody that's not contributing to the group. So even if your idea is, not taken on board, you still have to contribute to show that you are part of what your group are doing. And then the other thing I think is that you just need to be determined, because life is going to knock you sometimes, and you don't know where those knocks are going to come from. So you have to be resilient and not quit, even when people that you have, great respect for tell you that they don't believe in your dream. You have to be so convinced about your own dream that you don't care. You respect them, but you don't care for that opinion, because at the end of the day, it is your life, you know, and you need to be happy with the decisions that you make. And also, I would say, be curious. You have to be curious. It's almost like a little child. A little child will ask, sometimes we think ridiculous questions, but they're not. It's just because they're curious. They're always fascinated by things. And I'm naturally curious anyway. So I always encourage people to be curious. Don't just go with the status quo. Don't just say because everyone is going down the hill that you're going down the hill. Find out, why are they going down the hill? Do they really need to go down the hill, or do they need to take another route? So that's where critical thinking, comes into play. And critical thinking is really just asking questions, not just accepting the order of the day.
Fantastic, brilliant. Thank you very much. I like that critical thinking aspect, and not just accepting the order of the day. Have take initiative. Be able
Yeah.
to have your own mind. It's always very good.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
you being in a field that is, if we say, a reality, male dominated, and also I know that, for where you are today, it wasn't a straight journey.
Yes.
Um, what sort of challenges, really? What sort of challenges did you encounter in your, through your career journey, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Okay. That's a really good question. I think that generally my path to getting into industry, I wouldn't say it was problematic, because we were all young people, so you just go to uni and you do your group projects, and you'd always have people that would either not pull their weight, and you'd have others that are hardworking. So those are just basic things. But what I will say about industry is, because it's a male setting, and sometimes you have to go, like what we had a shop floor. Like, a shop floor is where you actually have the components. That's where the components are actually built. So I'm a stress engineer, and I'm analyzing, maybe there's a damage on a part of the aircraft. In this case, the nacelle. The nacelle is the outer covering of the engine. It's the body that covers the actual engine. So sometimes it might be a little bit of a dent or a bit of damage, and the customer wants to fly that aircraft, but they need, the technical clearance in order to fly it. So I then have to go on my computer, look for the 3D model, and find where it's located and look at the loads that are located on that area. And then what I then have to do is, if I'm not really 100% sure, I then have to go on the shop floor to just make sure that it's the right part I'm analyzing. So what I find is, because it's a lot of men that are on the shop floor, it can be a little bit intimidating. And it's not like they're bad or anything. They weren't, but it's just that, where you just feel like, oh my gosh, you feel scared. So those are the kinds of fears that I feel like I encountered. Or another example was during my PhD. Again, the technicians were all men, and I would need a part made. And again, that same fear of having to go into this pack of men and ask them to do a job for me. And it's like my voice is a little bit weak, petrified. Those are the kinds of fears that I feel like women experience that men may not necessarily understand or ever experience. Yeah.
Oh, great, fantastic. Thank you very much. That's brilliant. Uh, Thank you so much, Dr. Moronkeji, for being here today. We've gained so much from you. I want to talk a bit more about you quickly before we round up. Just a bit more about your your entrepreneurial side.
All right. Okay.
What's why you decide to do what you did with the Gig Box Office?
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you asked that question because, yeah, it's just a fun thing. So basically, I've always had an entrepreneurial drive. My mum's very entrepreneurial. My dad's more the academic. And I've always wanted financial liberation. And I know that financial liberation may not necessarily come from my day job. I've got to do a little bit more. So I ventured in like the property sector, like buying property, renting it out, or reselling. But I wanted to do something more. And I've always enjoyed Nollywood movies. And I've always thought, like, okay, why not do a Nollywood movie streaming platform and tailor it towards a diaspora community? And I had been working on this for quite a few years now and been struggling. And fortunately for me, I was in Clubhouse and I was just talking and sharing, like, my problems that I was encountering. And I met somebody on there who was, telling me, oh, I've done something similar. And, he sort of was speaking to me and encouraging me. And he just asked me pointed questions like, why are you doing this? Why haven't you done this? And just based on those conversations, I just realized, okay, he's actually right. I need to refocus what I'm actually trying to achieve here. And with that bit of information, literally, I went back, and by January this year, I started building the platform. And within a month and a half, the platform was ready. I launched the platform in March. And for me, I just feel like we should not be limited. Just because I'm an engineer doesn't mean I can't be a creative. Just because I'm a doctor doesn't mean that I can't have interest in the arts. So I'm of the belief that you should never limit yourself. The sky is not even the limit. It's no longer the limit. If Elon Musk is thinking of sending people to Mars, hey, just like I think Mr. Davenport, you said that at a session, and I totally agree with it. So I'm one of those people that I do not limit myself. And if you look back, when you look back to artists like Leonardo da Vinci and all these people, they were not just artists, they were also engineers. We have evidence of drawings of Leonardo da Vinci drawing like what looks like an aircraft in his day when people couldn't even fathom what that was. So I'm like, never limit yourself, dream as big. Let your dreams be so big they scare you that only God can help you get there. That's what I believe. So me doing a movie streaming platform was just something that I was passionate about, and I thought, now that I'm sort of at home, I am going to sort of look at my creative side and indulge in those passions.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Dr. Moronkeji. This is awesome. Thank you so much. I remember that myself and some of my friends when we were younger, in the teenage years, we used to say something to ourselves. The sky is your beginning.
Yes.
The sky is the beginning. And like I said, that word that I love so much, don't tell me that the sky is my limit when men are walking on the moon.
Thank you.
It's just, it's my favorite. It's my favorite. I love it so much. It pushes me so much. And I think that is what the younger generation needs. That's what our younger ones need now. The word is said, do not limit yourself. Okay, do not limit yourself. Explore your gifting. Explore different area of your life. Explore different aspects, and maximize your potential. And that's the reason why we're here. That's what we keep telling them. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
We're grateful for giving up your time because I know you're a very busy person.
Say that again.
I mean, part of your passion for young people, you decided to give this time to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I hope that we will be able to work more with you in the future, probably maybe in mentoring some of our students. That would be awesome. If you have the time.
Yes, definitely.
That would be an awesome thing.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, thank you everyone for today's session. So, and I hope you really enjoyed it. It's an honor to have Dr. Moronkeji with us, and I believe that she's giving you those nuggets and those words for you to, to push yourself and achieve your goals. Thank you.
Thank you.